Yeah, man. Yes, sir. Waking up this morning. Appreciate y'all being in with me this morning. We made it. It is game week. Give yourselves a round of applause, man. I appreciate y'all joining me this morning for Mint Street Mondays. My name is John Farmer, your host. If you are new here, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe button, and bell notification so you never miss a video. One half of the Mint Street Mondays interactive show that we do. Our other half, the invisible one, will be here very, very soon. But for here and now, we just here, and it's time to get going. Again, give yourselves a round of applause because we made it. All this time, man, we have been waiting and anticipating seeing real football in action. Many of us got to see that this weekend. Fan Fest was absolutely amazing. I did not get to attend myself, but I've seen plenty of people that were there. I've seen plenty of footage. We will talk about that in a moment. And, man, what a showing, man. What a showing. But first, before I get started, let me acknowledge the real, man. I appreciate the OCs, man, the original Cats. Yes, for $1.99 per month if you want to join the One Carolina membership, the OCs, the original Cats. We would appreciate you doing so. I see a few of my OCs in here already. One of my mods, Nicole Ivory, good morning. I appreciate you so much. Elaine Foster, good morning, man. And yes, you are right. Nick was about to go off. Shout out to my man Hollywood Global with the wrench. Shout out to my man Tebow C. Panthers 59. Good morning. I appreciate all you guys. And then Chris Diller said that that need to be Bryce's walkout song. Hey, man, I feel you, bro. We're going to get to that. But, man, I appreciate y'all so much. So, without further ado, we're going to get right to it, man. Fan Fest. Fan Fest is one of the most fun events. But I also think at the same time, the reason, there were 47,000 people in attendance from my understanding, right? 60% of the stadium was full. A lot of that hinges on the fact that we can't get into training camp. Now, I think that people still would have showed up because there's an excitement around the Carolina Panthers that didn't necessarily exist last year or in previous years because of, a playoff game and an almost playoff win, right? So that was very exciting. But, man, what a showing. What an absolute showing. And I do realize, let me just say this real quick and acknowledge this. If you guys are in and out, today, I get it. The Carolina Panthers are showing training camp on both their channel, and I think it's going to be on Inside Training Camp Live on NFL Network. So I totally understand. I would be watching it too. Like anybody watching you, I'm like, man, I'm watching that. Forget what you're talking about. But anyway, Fan Fest was amazing. But the one thing that just could not be ignored was the very thing that was basically the title of our show, is just the injuries, man. These injuries are a problem. And I'm sorry if I'm lagging already. I know that it'll probably stop lagging in just a moment, and everything will kind of work itself out. But these injuries are an absolute problem. And I wanted to have a deeper conversation and pose some questions, right? Because we had a few people that were injured recently, but with this Fan Fest, a couple of people didn't play, like Tommy Tremble, or didn't practice, I should say. Tommy Tremble sat out, Derek Brown, Devin Lloyd. These, Tommy Tremble's was an actual, general soreness, but the other guys just sat out because, vet situation. Like, no need to play those guys at all, right? But the Brazil injury was a gut punch, and we hadn't talked about that since it happened. The reason it was a gut punch for me is because it was kind of twofold. Number one, I was really excited to see what Chris Brazil was going to be able to offer to this offense just on himself alone, on his own merit. Take away what he was going to offer to the rest of the offense. There's this idea. A lot of people do this helmet scouting, right, is what they call it. I saw an article that suggested that Jalen Hyatt is someone that the Panthers should look at and, bring in his absence, right? And I completely disagree with that, right? I don't think you should look any further than the people on your roster. That's my opinion. But I can understand how people would come to that conclusion because, again, helmet scouting. I see a fast guy, see he's from Tennessee, similar situation. Nope, couldn't be more different, right? So that said, it was, one, what he was going to offer himself because obviously his tape says a lot different about him than a guy like Hyatt or any of the other Tennessee wide receivers that have been, brought in as of recent. 2 was what he was also going to do for other guys. I did see a tweet from one of our lead reporters that suggested that now T-Mac's 30% that was going to be in the slot this year is probably going to go back down closer to what it was last year, which I don't know that exact number, but it wasn't going to increase because of the loss of Brazil. Personally, I think that's a mistake because I still think you have people on this roster. Like if y'all, because a lot of people do this, right? And this has been happening. Brad and I argue about this. We go back and forth. I'm not saying that Leggett is going to be Brazil at all, right? But if you're going to sell me on the changes, and we see them, it's not necessarily having to be sold on them because you see them in real time. Like we see the clips from training camp, we see the clips from his actual training by himself and all that kind of stuff. And I'm motivated behind it. He's extremely motivated, so I'm motivated to see it and support it. But if I'm going to be sold on that, then no, I'm not going to change because he kind of would be in the same role, right? It's just that he would be more rotational because Brazil probably would have been the lead dog at that third wide receiver spot. Or you could maybe even argue number 2, right? But that does suck that you're going to change completely what you would do with a guy like Tetaroa in the slot because of that absence, right? But it's not enough for me to go out and be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go sign Jalen Hyatt. I've seen a whole bunch of other names of veteran receivers that they can bring in. Nope. I think you got way too many people on this roster that may not be what Brazil would offer you on offense, but they could, I guess, sort of fill a gap if you needed that, right? And bring some element of what you were going to have with Chris Brazil. That deep one-on-one threat, that take off the top of the defense threat. That would, to me, that would have been like a one-of-one thing for him at that height and size. Like, you can't replicate that. And they thought so highly of him. Like, it's insane, man. Like, just the conversations that came out. I mean, when we lost Brooks, man, the Brooks thing, like, especially after you saw what he did in Tampa, right? When you saw the catch, the throw from Bryce Young when, pocket kind of broke down and he was right there in the flat, threw it to him and he picked up like 15 yards. When you saw him playing bully ball, run over Winfield, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just knew, like, okay, this is getting ready to be crazy. And then he got hurt, and it was like, all right, well, here we are. But, man, I feel like they have that same excitement. I could argue maybe even more for Brazil. I mean, it literally was just like like, everybody was upset about Nick Scorton as well. But I don't think I've seen people that demoralized in our fan base off of an injury since Kelvin. When Kelvin, like the Kelvin injury, man, like it really was, because the difference with that and this is that at the time, after losing Smitty, after losing, Dominic Hickson, after losing, I mean, there were so many different receivers that you didn't have at your disposal anymore. You got Funchess now. You got, Philly. And no disrespect to any of these guys, but Kelvin Benjamin was brought in to be your number 1, right? And to see him get hurt in that fashion was demoralizing. Now, obviously, Brazil was not brought in to be a number 1, but he was brought in to do something really special and something very unique. So, yeah, that was really hurtful. But beyond that, him being put on injured reserve really sucks. They did sign a tight end. They were going to sign Kyle Trask, but instead decided to sign a tight end, which I don't look at that as any kind of nothing really stands out to me about that. Like, it didn't make me worry about, because I don't think this guy's going to necessarily have a ton of reps. I think it's more camp body than anything else as a result of the Mitch Evans injury. But it's still just one of those things, that's a position to me that I'm just looking at and man, I hope somebody just take the reins, man. Somebody has to just grab this position and run with it, right? And there's plenty of opportunity, plenty of, of able guys that can do that, but you just hope that you see it. Jatavion Sanders. I mean, last year, I remember hearing Mike K, shout out to Mike K, on the Process and Blue podcast say that Jatavion Sanders was by far and away the best offensive player in camp, right? And I think that part of the reason that didn't continue in the same way that it did was primarily because of injury, right? And just coming back from that, and then body change, like everything changed, for Jatavian Sanders, man. He looked like a completely different person coming in, from last year. So I think that, plays a role as well. Let me shout out some of y'all in the chat. I see some comments. Shout out to Miss Douglas, Grand Rising. Yes. Shout out to you, one of our channel members. And I thought, Miss Douglas, I gave you a wrench. I'll make sure to fix that. Jaleel Bennett, what's good? What's going on? The Atlanta boy, good morning, good morning. And then Michael Dickerson says, good morning, John. I pray that all has been well with you and your health. God's strength made perfect in your weakness. Amen. I accept and receive that. I appreciate it, my brother. But as I was saying, this was something I wanted to point out. Now, I got to warn you guys, because of what I'm streaming on, there's a really good chance that this might clip, right? So I'm only going to play it one time right now, and then I'm going to play it one more time whenever Brad comes in. But I got to just play this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to wait for Brad, and it's about that time, man. Y'all help me welcome the Invisible One, Bradford. I knew that he said he would be in around 10:15, but we're going to go ahead and bring him in now. Bradford, if you're ready, go ahead and hit that button, man. Join us. We would love to hear from you. Shout out to my man, the Invisible One, Brad. How you doing this morning, brother?
What's going on, man?
What's happening?
I told you earlier, doing some research now. I done suffered 3 stings in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm giving off a pheromone or since they stung me, it's marked me for death. But your boy is out here fighting these wasps tooth and nail. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going on, but
dang,
it's gonna have to stop.
See, when you told me you got stung, I thought it was like bumblebee or something like that. I didn't realize it was wasp. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, my girl's crib, they had some shutters and they had built a nest behind there. I guess I was making some noise or something. They was like, listen, gonna be none of that in the hood. And then, so I got stung twice there. Today, I was just walking through my parking lot on a leisurely stroll back to the crib, and one jumped up, hit me on the forearm. I'm like, come on, man. What's going on here?
Gracious.
But we gonna rise above, you know what I mean? Ain't no thing but a chicken wing on the string from the Burger King. So
as they say,
get here and talk some Panthers and talk about the good time.
Shout out to my man Keeb in the chat. Good morning, saying good morning to everybody. I appreciate you, Keeb. So Brad, I was talking about the FanFest situation. First, let's just start off with this: 60% of the stadium full, 47,000 people. Right? Do you think that, because I see this 2 ways? On one side, I see it as a response to the fact that you don't have the ability to go to training camp, right? So people are excited because there's diehards that go to training camp and there's casuals as well. And I hate to even refer to people like that because a fan is a fan is a fan, right? But there are people like you and me that are watching specifics outside of just the names that, are the popular names, the Cokers, the Youngs, the McMillans. We're watching like specific players like, dang, did you see Monroe Freeling on that? You know what I'm saying? You see his release, and all that kind of stuff. And most people aren't watching for that reason. But I feel like it's kind of twofold. On one hand, I feel like you're watching a team that doesn't have training camp. And so our type of people are out there. But I also feel like there's a kind of a fever pitch about the Panthers based on what the last time the team was seen in Bank of America Stadium was in a playoff game that we could have won. So what's your take?
Well, I'm a person who in the past is pretty much, regularly, me and my boy Pat, we have attended training camp. And you get to look at the different position groups. You get to look at the different coaching changes, how they run practice, how things are different from different coaches. You get to see, some days you go down there, you get to see the different reporters. You get to see the days ESPN's there. You get to see their schedules. And kind of just, the biggest thing is every year they would give out a roster construction and have everybody, a picture of everybody, the stock photo. It'd have their numbers. And so you would immediately be able to see like who this number is. You could do your research, find out where these guys are from. Some of the guys, especially the undrafted free agents, and just kind of see how these guys go about their work every day. And it's just really cool. I always, one of my biggest stories, I was there when Kelvin Benjamin went down. That was awful. But just to see the team rally from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was David Mayo was kind of, you know, going through drills, very, very just, half-assed, half-hearted. And I just remembered Luke Kuechly just jumping him and just flipping out on him. And he was so aggressive and in his face. And, it was like, he made him get back to the front of the line and do the drill like 2 times in a row. And I was like, man, hey, Luke is super aggressive. So you really get to, see a side of the players, a side of the team that you don't get to see when they show up on Sundays.
Yeah. One of the primary things that stood out was the fact that there were, people that were held out. Derek was held out. Devin Lloyd was held out. But more than anything, even with all the excitement that existed around FanFest, man, the big story was just the injuries, man. I was talking earlier, the Chris Brazell injury was a gut punch. You talked about the Kelvin Benjamin, right? Whenever Jonathan Brooks went down and you take away just very small parts of what he does well, right? Your whole offense can change off of that. I am not a person that thinks that you should go out, because I saw an article and I don't have it. I'm not going to pull it. I have it, but I'm not going to pull it up because I don't even feel like reading that junk. That suggested that we should go give Jalen Hyatt a chance. But I feel like that's helmet scouting, because we're looking at a guy that was similar type, similar build, but has not had. I mean, if you're going to do that, man, then that the Xavier Legette, ride or die crew should come out with pitchforks, because Xavier Legette to this point has had a better career, right? And it's not even close. That said, I don't think you go out because I still think that you can get from small parts of guys like Legette, David Moore, to play that X position where you still can use Tetaroa in the slot. But there are a lot of beat reporters that are reporting like, hey, this is going to change the way that they make that decision. Do you think that they should go out and maybe get someone? I don't, so that they can kind of hold tight to, his slot usage? Or do you think we have it on the roster and you could just, make do with what you have?
Well, I mean, I've been kind of reading, and people are saying that we still have a weak wide receiver room, which I do not understand. I mean, you have Legette, a guy who's made necessary changes to his weight, concentration, the way he prepares. T-Mac's put weight on. T-Mac looks, really good. Coker, the big explosion that we got out of him at the end of the year. David Moore is very consistent. I know a lot of people want to move on from him, but I mean, he's very consistent. He's a guy that gets open. Mitchie, really excited about him coming back, his connection with Bryce. We all want to see Jimmy Horn take that next step, or just even give him the opportunity to take that next step.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him, in one-on-ones, and he's doing work. I would say, even with a guy like Bryson Tremaine, I mean, the guy blocks like a tight end. Dave was very complimentary of him in an interview this weekend, talking about just how he went to Stanford. The guy's very smart. He can do everything, and he can run every position. He knows what he's doing. I just don't think that there's room other than another camp body to go out and get somebody. If you're thinking it's someone that's going to ascend and actually help us this year, I believe all the guys that are going to help us week in, week out are already on the roster.
They're on the roster. Yeah, I completely agree. That's one position. Look, it's way too much to develop. There's way too many. And I'm going to we're going to go over a interview that I heard earlier in the week. And we're going to, recap some of that and speak to why I'm big on the work with what you got, right? Because to me, you're only going to get better with especially the level of motivation that these guys have, man, coming off of what we saw in that playoff game, and then seeing the summer that these guys had. I mean, these guys, like you just said it, you talked about T-Mac. Bro, T-Mac is huge, man. Pause. Like, he is significantly bigger than he was last year, right? Xavier Legette is significantly smaller than he was last year. And it's not just them. All these guys did something that made them different, coming into this year. Bryce Young, and we'll talk about him in a second, surgical. People's reaction walking away from FanFest was like, who is this kid? He went like 3 drives and didn't have an incompletion. Like, it's different. So to me, I'm just not on board with like completely shaking up that room specifically, because you just got guys that are going to turn the corner. I don't even think it's a question that some of these guys are going to turn the corner and give you way more than what you've gotten from them already. Shout out to my man Jay Issue in the building. Wrenched up. Salute to my man Jay Issue with the wrench. Congratulations, my brother. But yeah, man, I'm with you, Brad. I think you keep what you got. Don't move away from that and just develop. That's it.
Well, the thing is, like we talked about some last week, we're not contenders in the way of we need one more guy, mortgage the future to go get that guy now. I think you stick to the plan, or as Jay-Z used to always say, stick to the script, no ad-libbing, and let these guys develop. You may not be as good, or you may not win the games that you could, but you're also not stunning the growth of people you've drafted and for the block of guys that you've invested in to move on and to get new people and for them to have to take a back seat.
Yeah. Yeah. Real in the field, man. Shout out to Willie Smith. Good morning. All right, so I want to show you something, man. Fan favorite. Look, like I said, we're going to talk about Bryce Young. Anytime you might as well go ahead and get ready for this, right? Because I saw someone suggest that Bryce Young could potentially get benched for Kenny Pickett, right? Like if he's having a bad season, they'll bench him and they'll go to Kenny Pickett. Absolutely asinine, ass 10, ass 11. All that Stephen A stuff. But there's another one. There's a guy that if he starts having success, Brad, you might as well get ready for it because it's going to happen, right? So this clip is of Haynes King throwing a pass to Casey Washington in 11 on 11s, right? And he was on the run through one. It was a dart, no doubt. And it was a great pass, great catch. But there's something else on this clip that stood out. Now, as I told y'all earlier, I'm going to play this clip, and I'm only going to play it one time because it's definitely going to make the stream jump. But we're going to live with that this time, and we'll get back to it in just a second. All right, so I played that clip, and I could already see I was stuck beforehand. It made me look crazy. That freeze frame was nuts. But y'all may or may not be able to hear me. I'm going to keep going anyway. On that play, Brad, yes, Haynes King was able to escape. Haynes King was able to throw the ball down the field. What was more impactful than what Haynes King did? What was more impactful was who you saw in pursuit. Jackson Kawach. Completely blew past the the offensive lineman. Completely blew past the running back that was there for protection. And in my opinion, had this been real game action, that was probably a sack. If not, it would have resulted in something way worse than the completion that you saw. Because he was you could see him actually let up on that play, right? As I mentioned on Twitter, this is probably my most exciting camp watch for the preseason. I'm more excited to watch Jackson Kawach than I am anybody else. Because as I said, when we did our post-draft show, that if I'm Jackson Kawach, anybody not named Devin Lloyd looks like food to me. Trevin Wallace, Bam Martin Scott, and look, I'm not trying to crap on these players, right? But what I'm saying is that, yeah, I'm ready to compete. I think there's a world that exists where, yes, Trevin Wallace is going to be your linebacker outside of Devin Lloyd. But I can see a world where Jackson Kawach could start. If you keep seeing plays like this that we saw in camp, in actual preseason action, there's a world that exists where he could hype up that depth chart and be the next guy in line. So if Trevin Wallace does get hurt again, hey, here you go, right? And he a big dude too, man. That's another thing that I really like. Not a small guy. 6'2", athletic, was an Ohio State linebacker before becoming Miami of Ohio linebacker, right? So, dude's legit. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like for him in the preseason game, especially this Hall of Fame game, because I think he's going to get a lot of action. He's going to get a ton of action. You still there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So I know you couldn't really see that play, but I saw that and I was very excited seeing him specifically.
Yeah, we talked about it some yesterday. I mean, the kid he's fast, he can do diagnostics, but the truth of the matter is we may not have seen him do anything but special teams if he would have stayed at Ohio State. I mean, Sonny Styles, Orville Reese, the guy was playing behind two first-round linebackers, not to mention 50-60% of their defensive guys that went to the NFL went in the first 2-3 rounds this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was facing an uphill battle, and like we were talking about last night, he just wanted to go somewhere where he could get some reps.
Yeah.
And he excelled. And that's the thing. We're so used to this monopoly that the SEC has now, where most guys are coming from, Florida, Alabama, Texas A&M. But growing up, when you look at these guys, Vasa Kahima, and not just Vasa Kahima, I just like saying that name, Vasa Kahima. But when you start looking at these names, Sweetness, Eric Dickerson, like these guys went to way different universities. Randy Moss ended up playing at Marshall because of what happened at Florida State. Guys, you can find the talent everywhere. And even so now, when you have the technology, you have the ability to do this scouting from afar, you can really find some gems. And, we may be jumping the gun. There's always camp guys that you get excited over. But ever since we chose this kid, I'm just excited just because, he's a football player.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a dog, as they say.
Yep.
And I would really like to see him develop and be a guy that maybe we can see getting some meaningful reps around, 2028.
Yeah. I'm with all that. So, I mean, yeah. And like you said, he's got the greatest opportunity to develop. You couldn't be in a better place to develop as a linebacker, right? And I don't think in the NFL, in my opinion. But I do want to answer a question real quick that I seen in the chat from Michael Dickerson. He says, off topic, but Jon and Brad, do you think it's possible Brooks has a stranglehold on the backfield coming out of the bye week? I'll let you go first, Brad. What are your thoughts on that?
Whoa. Really quick, I was looking up the measurables for Jackson Kawach. Man, the kid is 6'4", 235. That's what he'll be as a rookie. So, wow.
Man,
okay.
Look, real quick before you answer Michael Dixon's question, I'm gonna send you that clip. I know you don't really have Twitter like that, but I'm gonna send you that clip to watch. You talk about his size. Watch how he runs past. It's not necessarily how he ran past. It's how he blew through the defensive lineman and then just absolutely ran right past the running back. Haynes King was one of the leading rushing quarterbacks in college football last year and has stats that are like, I think if I'm not mistaken, Haynes King's got some, all-time rushing stats with like in college football history because he played for so long. And he was chasing, like I said, if he doesn't give up pursuit, that's a sack. And for him to be that height and size and to do that was unreal. But carry on.
But yeah, it's a very plausible scenario. It's just talent. There's a reason that a guy like Jerry Jones, who has Marion Barber, Emmitt Smith, the course of his tenure as an owner, has always had good running backs. Herschel Walker. the thing about knowing and scouting a particular player, it's like Pittsburgh's always had good linebackers. We've always had good linebackers. That's why we're excited about Jackson Kawach. These teams, even with the knee issue, they wanted Jonathan Brooks. When you go back and look at this kid's tape, his film, I mean, he can catch out of the backfield. He can cut on a dime. He can outrun you. He can run over you. It's just a thing that where he just needed to get healthy. So I believe, again, because Chuba's done so much for us. Chuba's such a leader. I think about the way Chuba was there for Brooks this offseason, when he was baptized. Like it's a thing where we're not writing off Chuba, but this guy's got the kind of talent, and he's on our roster for the next 2 years, no matter what. So if he starts to produce, there will definitely be a discussion because you want to win. You want to get better. You want to have the people in place to ascend to that next level. And Brooks is that kind of player that, we saw it with Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. I mean, Montgomery's a great running back. He's strong, great pass blocker. But, man, when you hand that ball off to Jahmyr Gibbs, man, when you hit Gibbs on the screen,
it's different.
It's always a chance he can take it to the house.
It's different. So I'm with you. And so from my answer to that is, I mean, all that's on the table, right? I don't think none of that is off the table. I think that you have as good a situation in your backfield right now with him healthy as possible, as you can anyway. You got 3 running backs that can all do the same thing, right? Well, I say 2. Chuba can catch out the backfield. He's gotten a lot better, but it's not a natural thing for him. I think that the twitchiness and instincts to be able to catch, see, explode, hit gap, that's a very special, that's a God-given talent, right? So you can get better at it because Chuba's proven it. But you could tell that with Brooks and Trevor Etienne, it is just a different vibe, right? So I think if you see explosion and could he be lead back? Yes, but there's always going to be a 2-back situation here, and that was the plan anyway, right? So I don't think that he becomes the Emmett, the Walter Payton, Earl Campbell style of running back where it's like a 3-down back. But could he be? Absolutely. But I still think even if he was at 100% coming out of college, they still would have been more 2-back just for keeping him healthy and also just for the opportunities to have versatility at the position. So at least that's my belief on it. But I appreciate the sentiments on that. But anyway, man, y'all make sure to smash that like button. Like I said, I know that Training Camp Live is going on right now. I don't have that streaming. I'm not streaming that at the moment. I know that we probably won't have as much people in here because of that, which I'm completely okay with. I'll be watching it myself instead of watching me. But we do appreciate y'all that are in the building. Smash the like button. That is free, and we very much appreciate that. So I wanted to move on to the next topic because this was important, because this was another standout of FanFest, right? So I do have something I'm going to read that might be a little bit long-winded, but I think it's important for us to read. And that's our favorite topic. That's Bryce Young. I saw an interview, and this was even before FanFest, before people got to put their eyes, on a full-scale practice in camp, right? And it was an interview from Scott Fowler. Shout out to Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer. And he talked about how Bryce Young looks like $1 million, actually $200 million at Panther camp. So I'm going to read this article. Like I said, it's a little robust, but just bear with me because I think it's important for the general conversation. He says, as he begins his 4th NFL season at age 25, Bryce Young just seems different. People can and should be skeptical about the sign that's written about a starting NFL quarterback every offseason when no one is getting sacked and almost everyone looks good, which I completely agree with. You have to be very careful about, if we're going to do that with Bryce, we should do that with everybody. But on the flip side, if we're going to do this with Bryce, then, and I'm talking mainly to me, we need to do this with everybody. And I think y'all know who everybody is, but we'll get around to that later. People can and should be skeptical, but I'm here to tell you, based on whatever institutional knowledge I've acquired from covering these Carolina Panthers for 32 seasons. Now, here's where the bomb drop comes. That what Young is doing in practice right now in training camp is about to lead to a really good and possibly great season for him. And it will lead to a massive new contract too. You've seen Steph Curry get on the heater, right? When he's shooting logo threes and putting people to sleep in the fourth quarter with exactly zero fans in attendance and not nearly the same level of pressure as a real game, that was Young in Carolina's training camp Wednesday. It was the best practice I've ever seen him have. It was impossible to look away as number 9 made one dazzling throw after another, firing the ball into windows the size of portholes. Let's pause right there. All right. If Bryce Young was a practice warrior, then I would look at this and be like, okay, cool. Because we've seen this over the years from quite a few people. I can name a few if you want me to. One of them just retired. Will Greer, right? There were times in practice where Will Greer would light it up. Matt Corral would be extremely accurate in practice, right? I bought into it. I'm a fan. Fan is short for fanatic. You got me. The difference is that you're talking about a quarterback who literally in the fourth quarter, for the exception of one drive at the end of the year, and you could make an argument that maybe that drive keeps going if 15 actually grabs the ball, right? But I'm not blaming because that's a lot of pressure, especially for a young guy in that moment. That said, this guy literally has ice in his veins. The majority of our wins last year that were won in the fourth quarter. Now, if you want to make an argument, well, why wasn't this happening earlier in the game? Maybe, hey, look, you got me in some of them. But when it counts, when you need it, no pressure felt. So if he's doing this in practice, then to me, that's going to transition. And the thing that stuck out to me most of what Scott Fowler said here is it was the best practice I've ever seen him have. It was impossible to look away as number 9 made one dazzling throw after the other. Young threw one 30-yard deep ball to Xavier Legette in the back left corner of the end zone that couldn't have been placed better if he had walked the 30 yards and handed it to Legette, who made a great catch with safety Nick Scott draped all over him. That's what I love to see. We talked about this last year, and I know Brad's listening, but he's just giving me a chance to get through the article, and he'll come in and chime in just a moment. But one of the things that we talked about at nauseum last year was, hey, if Xavier Legette, who sat down with Cam Newton, says, hey, man, I really just need to do some of the things that I was good at in college. Well, what were those things? Primarily just field stretching. If I run a 9 route, trust me that I can go up and catch the ball. Will you actually trust me in that? Here's your proof. Threw you a 30-yard deep bomb. Now, the one that he threw against Atlanta, Xavier Legette, it wasn't wide open, but it was a lot of room. He had a big step, right? Nick Scott draped all over you on this one. Came down with it. That's trust. If we do it in camp and it doesn't work, then I'm not probably going to do it in the game. But if we simulate this in camp over and over again and we build that trust up, hey, you came down and hung out with me in my house, with my family so I could show you how I really give it up, right? And showed me some of the most love that I felt in my life from someone who honestly probably could make an argument that, hey, I've written you off. And this goes both ways. This ain't just a one-way street. For as much as Bryce Young went down to give Xavier Legette confidence, Xavier Legette gave Bryce confidence. Hey, man, you can believe in me. You can trust me. I haven't given up on you. Remember, you got benched. Do you remember that? I never gave up on you. I never talked crazy about you to anybody. I was always in your corner. They brought me in to help. I came to be an asset, not a liability, right? So seeing this early in camp, and look, this ain't the only one. This is the one that's been highlighted. Saw one in FanFest, right? So this is something that's a consistent theme between them two. And look, this was happening even before Brazil got hurt. So I'm glad that I'm seeing this, and I'm glad that this trust is being built. Let's keep going. Young scrambled away from pressure. That was where he's special, Coach Dave Canales said, and found one target after another on the run. Over and over, the coverage wasn't bad, but Young was just better. His receivers helped him out by catching everything. He ended practice, and I saw this one. This is the one that somebody, shout out to my man, Real Ball Watcher, he reposted this, and then I reposted it, and his post went viral. My post did numbers too, which is crazy. But somebody from a rooftop condo in Charlotte filmed this exact play. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, yo, where are these cameras at whenever these UFOs are flying around? Because I was able to see Teteroa's, like, the detail on his tattoos paused when he caught the ball, right? But, man, what a beautiful, beautiful throw, anticipation throw. I mean, the ball was out of Bryce's hands before T-Mac even came into the frame. The ball was heading right in the direction where he needed to catch it. That's where you would see people like JT O'Sullivan writing on his screen, A, capital A, circled A, undercased A, or, strike through A, and all that kind of stuff from the anticipation. This is the stuff that we talked about. This was his superpower, one of them, coming out of college. And you're seeing this in real time. We've already seen it. But now, when I got mastery over the offense, and there's something else, too, that I believe, and we'll bring Brad in on that portion of it, that's happening here. This is magical. This is special. Over and over, the coverage wasn't bad, but Young was better. His receivers helped him out by catching everything. He ended practice with a strike to the fingertips of Teteroa and McMillan in the end zone. T-Mac hauled it in on the full stretch. The horn blew and practice was over with a play that was symbolic of the day. Hey, man, listen. At the beginning of all this, when this whole camp thing started, defense was going crazy. 2 days straight, man. People was getting worried. Man, what's going on with the offense? Because defense was out there giving it up. And it hadn't been like that since. Boy, what a beautiful thing. They whooped our, you know what, today. Noted Pro Bowl cornerback J.C. Horn, speaking of the Carolina's offense success against the defense. And yes, that's exactly what happened. It's not what happened in every practice, but it's happening more often as Young, the former number 1 overall pick, plays with a sort of freedom that knowing the playbook backward and forward allows you to do. Here's something else I'm going to tell you. Newsflash. It ain't just that he knows the playbook. The shackles have been taken off. Hallelujah. Shout out to Brad Isaac. I was one of those people. I'm not going to say I was like, I don't want to sit here and act like I was all excited with Brad Isaac becoming the play caller. But when we had Real Ball Watcher on last year, and he talked about the very small sample size that we've seen from Brad Isaac, he told me, and if you go back and watch our video, you can see this, and I quote, John, if they ever give him the full play calling duties, we will become what we are, a passing offense. He will open this thing up. We will be aggressive. We will become a passing offense, and we might be seeing that happening in real time. Bryce is continuing to take steps, Canales said on Wednesday. What I see from Bryce right now is just ownership and mastery of the concepts, and now I just see the time and the rhythm and to me, you factor with the guys. And watching him throw anticipatory balls to T-Mac, to Jalen Coker, to David Moore, who showed up again with another touchdown. Don't discount David Moore. Do not discount it. It's important to inject the requisite skepticism here. Chris Brazell, the rookie the Panthers were counting on to be the occasional player and deep ball threat for Young, was carted off the field, blah, blah, blah. And it's also significant to note that Young, still only 14-30 as an NFL starter, can't get hit in practices, which Carolina fans would usually be watching but aren't for the second straight year due to construction. Boo. Lots of QBs throw the ball well in those situations, including Carolina's backup on Wednesday. Still, most of those QBs aren't regularly going against Horn and Mike Jackson. That's very important. Very important. We're going to listen to an interview in just a few moments about a player who talked about how another player is doing well because of who he's going against in practice. Monroe Freeling and Jalen Phillips are having absolute dogfights in practice. And it's going under the radar, but both of them are getting better as a result of it. And the crazy thing, man, both of these guys are humongous human beings. So that's got to be a really, really fun battle to watch. One that I am absolutely jealous that we can't watch. And it sucks that these guys aren't in Spartanburg anymore, but I'm not going to keep complaining about that. Said Horn, I kind of noticed Bryce's trust in his receivers more, putting the ball in the air, letting them come and make plays. They whooped our behind today for most of the practice, but it's good to see that too, just because we know we're coming in with some firepower on the offensive side of the ball, and it's going to help us on Sundays. Iron sharpening iron. And he be talking crazy out there. And I really believe this. I really, truly believe this. I think that Bryce Young has finally got to a comfort level where not only can I have autonomy to go where I want to with the ball, right? passing the ball, because the one thing I love about T-Mac, who is the ultimate alpha receiver, he's not a diva. T-Mac's a team guy. I love that, right? At least not yet. But full autonomy over the offense and full trust that I can say whatever I want to these guys. It's not effing raining anymore. It's not effing raining anymore. Let's get it together. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to go down to the very end of this. Carolina went 8-9 in 2025, and it's over under wins, still currently at 7.5. But I'm now to the point of agreement with tight end Tommy Tremble, who told me this in June about Young. Bryce is playing on a different level. He's going to ball out, and it's going to get him paid. And it's going to get him paid. And I truly, truly believe that. Brad, I have said a lot on this topic, and I'm going to give you the floor. And I want to salute Scott Fowler. Thank you for a great article. This was a great article. This is a great in-depth analysis of where Bryce is and where he will likely go, which to me, I'm going to wait and save my predictions and all that kind of stuff like that. That's coming. I want to just focus on this article and the things that were said about Bryce. And Brad, I want to hear from you based on the information that you've done research on, based on this article that Scott Fowler wrote. Where are you with Bryce Young today?
Tentatively excited. I know I always allude to the fact that it takes people time to develop, namely being with Leggett when we have the conversations with him. But as far as, Canales and the play calling, I know we added Darrell Bevel. I don't know if you people are fans of the Seahawks as far as just, fans of the NFL enough to watch the Seahawks, watch the Miami Dolphins the last few years. I mean, the Dolphins put up 70 points in a game.
They did.
Darrell Bevel has definitely it's more than Jim Caldwell just being like a elderly offensive assistant. Like, this guy is able to bring Isaac along, help him. Canales is there. I think it's opening up more because Bryce is comfortable in the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Once you master something, then you have the ability to more so be yourself. It's just like that in so many areas of life. I mean, you go to a new job, when you're training the first month or so, you're not really picking around. You're not really asking anybody else to step it up. You're not asking anybody else to do better. You're just trying to get acclimated. I will always, allude to or go back to that first year. I mean, it was such a terrible organization at that point. I mean, we've made real strides as the Carolina Panthers as a business. Back then, Frank Wright, did he really even want Bryce? Did he even really want to coach? He only lasted a number of games. You had the backbiting. Reports say the special teams coach was going to the owner behind closed doors and telling him what Frank was doing wrong or what he perceived that Frank was doing wrong.
Yeah.
And so then you have Canales come in, and there were times when he allowed Bryce to air it out. And I think, when Real Ball Watcher first said that he was calling him, conservative Canales, I was fighting back on the aspect of, man, I mean, come on, man. Like, Bryce isn't good enough to allow him to just go out there and sling the ball all over the yard. I also, though, feel after, watching some things, after looking at some different film, that he did get conservative. Greg Rosenthal, his big thing when he was doing like an NFC South preview was the Panthers kept running the ball last year and they weren't good at it.
Yep.
And I don't know, if you contribute that to the offensive line juggling, but we did. I mean, it wasn't even 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It was like 1.2 yards in a cloud of dust. And especially if you take away the Rams game in the rain, the Cowboys game, and the Miami game where Rico busted out, we really had trouble running the ball. So I'm excited, one, in the maturation that you see a guy who, like I said, he's learned the offense. We were talking about it last night. I mean, Bryce come from Alabama, man. The kid had 10 seconds to throw almost every play. You know what I mean? Like, and he had really, really, really good guys at wide receiver. And so, you know how it is. When you're the number one pick, you go to a bad team. That's just what it is. I remember
So
everybody getting mad at Cam saying he come to a team of losers,
yeah,
but you come to a team that had been losing. That's why they have the number one pick.
right. I'll say this real quick. Let me interject for 2 seconds. Bryce Young had probably, if I look back over, I could say maybe, and I'm trying to remember who, when Blake Sims was the quarterback of Bama, what his receiving core was. But they had at least one guy. Alabama's always had at least one guy, right? But Bryce Young's first season and Bryce Young's second season at Bama, the second season, I mean, it ain't even a question. Like his leading receiver the second season was Jahmyr Gibbs, right? That's really what got him drafted, was what they were able to do, like the drive against Auburn, when they come back to beat Auburn. They still made the playoff, but it was just a terrible roster offensively altogether. But even that first season, compared to some of the receivers that we've seen in Bama's history, the Julios, the Ruggs, the Devontaes, Bryce didn't have none of that. Now he did have, I will say this, and this is where people were so frustrated about Brazil, is that we have yet to see Bryce Young have a consistent, just absolute take the top off the defense receiver. And that's also what won him the Heisman in Jamison Williams, who oddly enough leads the NFL in deep threat yards or whatever over the last 2 seasons. So not having that is one of the things that kind of you still hadn't really got to see what he really can do if you had that as an option. But look, very few people have that. Josh Allen hadn't had that as an option. That's why people are excited about DJ Moore. They're like, he finally has a deep threat X, right? Not named Diggs. And I wouldn't even say Diggs is that. But so you have to make do with what you got. But as far as the talent that Bryce Young had around him at Bama, offensive line talent, 100%. Like, you're right. Watching that Georgia game, man, I mean, he was clean pretty much the whole game, right? But receiving talent, I could argue that the receiving core we have now is the best receiving core he's ever played with.
Well, yeah, because they're professionals. I mean, he didn't have a T-Mac there or a Coker, but I mean, you just said it in Jameson Williams. I mean, he had speed. And when you have that kind of offensive line that can lean on people, when you do pass, it completely negates, not even completely, but I mean, it negates a lot of the issues that you normally see. It's, you go back to Cam at Auburn, their running game was so, like people said the reason that he had the number one passer rating in college that year was because the running game was so deadly. They were like, when you're so scared of him pulling, him running, him handing off to Dwyer, then that's why you had those guys who were, they say, butt naked, wide open, Pauls, down the field. So, but also, I mean, when we were talking about this last night, and I was saying I would go in and look at some of the different things surrounding the maturation of quarterbacks. And like I said, when you're the number one pick, you go to a bad team, but you have guys. I mean, Peyton Manning never passed more than 26 touchdowns once in his first 4 years. He never passed for less than 26 interceptions in his first 4 years. You look at Drew Brees, struggled through his first 3 years with San Diego before breaking out in his fourth season. Steve Young, several years as a backup, early struggles in Tampa Bay. Spent some years behind Joe Montana, MVP, Super Bowl champion. Alex Smith and Rich Gannon, both of these guys were almost a decade plus struggling. I know, especially Alex Smith's first 5 or 6 years in San Francisco before he became a Pro Bowl quarterback. So certain guys just take time to develop. It's the same way. Well, it's not the same way. I won't do that because quarterbacks, receivers are different. But um, we all saw how good CJ Stroud looked his first year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of it. I mean, people were like, man, look, CJ Stroud is doing his thing, man. Like, Bryce got to step it up. But we've seen him get better and we've seen Stroud digress. This is only year 4. And so, because we're used to Jake Delhomme coming from NFL Europe with a very established wide receiving core, a great offensive line, and a great running back in Stephen Davis, you see that instant. As soon as we figured out who he was, we were winning.
Mm-hmm.
Cam, he comes in, rookie of the year, 2 years later, playoffs, Super Bowl, a year or two after that. It's hard for us to see a guy struggle and then work through those subsequent years of maturation. So we're at the point now where, and this is where I'm at now with it. Like I said, I'm excited, but I really want to see that computer brain, that ability to work through your progressions, the ability to on 3rd and 9 not think, well, man, it'll be a miracle if we don't have to punt.
Yeah. I think you're
Because that's
already
what
there.
we've seen.
Honestly, I think you're there with him already with that. I just think that one, there has to be a buy-in, and I think we're at that point. I think we're past the conservative point. I think there is a full buy-in. Shout out to Marcus or March. I think I'm saying that right. 6406. He said, "Man, BY was the best player we had on the team at 23. What did he get for his gifts? 60 plus sacks." He really did, bro. That the Minnesota game, I'm like, it was kind of funny to watch, but also just sad at the same time because you really got to see just how small Bryce Young looked in the NFL in that game. Turnstile at offensive line, and man, he was just getting blown up, and he was holding the ball too long. It was both, at the same time. So, shout out to SC Panther boy. Lane said Stroud had the concussion last season. Hope he's better. And I also think Stroud is suffering from the same things that Bryce suffered from, man. I mean, shoot, you lost one of the best receivers in the NFL, and Nico Collins hadn't been, available for you. The offensive line has been awful. There's no running game, right?
Tank Dell was hurt too.
Tank Dell's been hurt for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I expect Stroud to probably bounce back this year, but yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you and goes to prove. I mean, Tom Brady, go look at Tom Brady's stat line the year he left New England, right? And Brady didn't fall off. Brady just didn't have anything. And that same team Cam went in the COVID year and still won 7 games with. You know what I'm saying? And it just, if the cupboard's bare and you don't have anything, it's hard to perform when you don't have your best people around you in any business. So the best thing to do is to set up standard operating procedures so that you can. And here's the thing: the one thing I can say that I love about the Panthers organization and where we are moving forward is that we might have set a blueprint for other teams to follow and also be able to deal with the media pressure, because I mean, if it was up to, the mainstream media, whatever, the few times that they have mentioned Bryce Young over the past couple of years, it's usually been in context of like, yeah, they probably gonna end up moving on from him. Yeah, they probably should have moved on from him by now. He got benched. It was like they talked about him for 3 or 4 days. They shot at the organization because they set him up for failure. There was, regardless of which side you stood, on that was most of the coverage that he got. I mean, after battling it out with the Rams, they didn't really talk about us that much because, we're not a draw, for them. So at least from their perspective. But I think a lot of that gets put to bed this year. I do. I'm very excited for Bryce to have an offense where he really can just be turned loose. And, if there ever was a person that would support such a thing, as you mentioned, it would be a Darrell Bevel. So shout out to y'all in the chat. We appreciate you guys for standing in with us. 30 likes. If you don't mind, smash that like button. It's free. If you want to join the OCs, $1.99 per month to join, hit that subscribe button if you are not a subscriber. So, Brad, I want to move on to. I know we're kind of moving and breezing past this Bryce subject, but I really want to get. This is probably my most exciting topic for the day to get to. You and I talked about this briefly last night. There was an interview with Brentston Buckner, former Carolina Panther, former Cincinnati Bengal, which he is kind of funny because that's the one place that he did not want to acknowledge that he played for. Former Pittsburgh Steeler. But really, Brentston Buckner was known for playing with us, right? That's where he got his. That's really where he made his mark in the NFL. Played for us for 5 years. Played on the Super Bowl team. Was on team with guys like Pep and Smitty and Jordan Gross, and talked about a lot of those things. So this was a great interview with a lot of nuggets. But there are a few things that I took away from it that I really wanted us to listen to. And shout out to Mac and Bone. Really good podcast, and they're on the radio as well. These are guys that have been pretty long standing in this space, and I very much appreciate what they were able to do with this interview, because they pulled questions out of him that really gave us a deep insight of what's going on, and then also get his perspective because of what he's seen and the kind of success that he's had. One of those things being the difference with how this team looks, right? This team looks. We talked about it earlier. Jalen Phillips, 6'5", 6'6". T-Mac, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", depending on, the day that he measures. Monroe Freeling, big dude. And Brentston Buckner spoke to this and just how different the team looks at this point from before.
Okay, let's talk about in the trenches. It was the first time wearing pads. What stuck out in the trenches when you were watching?
What really stuck out for me was the size of the team now. I remember coming back 3 years ago. It was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and I was shocked at how small the team was. They weren't NFL like size guys. But now you walk in that gate and you see big, huge guys. And I think Dan and Dave had done a good job of changing the physique of this team. And that's what really stuck out, just big offensive linemen, big defensive linemen, and when they collide, it's football noise. You know what I mean? It's the sound you want to hear, iron sharpening iron. So that really stood out to me. And then also, I was sitting there looking, Jackson and Horn are two of the bigger cornerbacks I've seen in the NFL in a while. Not just height-wise. I'm just talking about from size, thickness, and, just the way they are built. And this is a big physical team, and you throw Devin Lloyd in that middle linebacker position, now all of a sudden you look a lot stronger up the middle of your defense. And then offensive-wise, just seeing the rhythm, of those guys, the way they play, and knowing Coach Goodwin, who the offensive line coach, he's still going to find a way to run the ball and attack that defense and trying to block Derrick Brown every snap. It was just good to see that type of mentality going on.
Remember when you and I, Brad, talked about the Shao Smith-Wade situation, right? Who has been playing well in camp, by the way, and that needs to be noted. I heard a GM say this one time: if you have a question about talent, then you can rest it on this. The bigger guy wins, right? Corey Thornton playing in the nickel spot, when you just heard him say what he talked about with, Mike Jack and J.C. Horn, if you've got a guy that's super talented, and look, for nothing, it's a blessing to have Shao Smith-Wade playing that well. It's a blessing to have Corey Thornton playing that well. But as far as my starting guys, the guys that I'm rolling out there, first, second, third drives, you know what I'm saying? Like to get the brunt of the work immediately, I'm going with the bigger guys. It's important in the NFL, right? Some of these guys that we've had, Cam Newton is a, anomaly when it comes to quarterback. But I used to hear people all the time talk about how Julius Peppers was a person that he just instilled a different kind of fear. For you to be able to move that fast, be that big, that agile, it is a different vibe when you see people like that are, especially when you put on the pads, especially when you put the helmet on. That's all I keep hearing out of camp about Jalen Phillips is like, man, this dude is humongous. And the battles, like I said, and Buck talked about this in this interview, going on between him and Monroe Freeling, who is another guy that's humongous, is stuff of legend. Those are the kind of, that's what you think about when you think football. Finesse guys, cool. And there's some small guys like what Steve Smith was able to do is an anomaly, and that's why he gets the kind of respect that he gets. And we hadn't seen it since. And you probably won't see it again. For a guy to be 5'9", 5'10", and play like he's 6'6", as an X, very rare, right? But still, the mentality was the same. He still played above, or overkicked his coverage, as some people would say. But, man, look at some of the guys who were drafted this year. Sonny Styles, big linebacker. We were just talking about Jackson Kawach, 6'4", big linebacker. Devin Lloyd, big linebacker, right? That is extremely important. Brad, you can speak to this as being someone that is – see, y'all don't know Brad, right? I tell people all the time. I get people ask me my height all the time. I've had people, because I sit in this chair, somebody –
Hey, so you don't know, baby D, trust me.
No.
That's why you laughing.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I've had people ask me like, or tell me, when I tell people my height, they're like, no way. Like most people, because I sit in this chair all the time, think I'm like 5'10". I'm 6'5", right? But seeing someone, it's weird because I used to work with this kid at a dealership, and I would see this kid walk through a dealership because my wife would always be like, do you notice, like when we started dating, she's like, you notice people like look at you weird when you walk into places? And I'm like, not really, because I don't really pay much attention to it, but then I started kind of watching. I'm like, yeah, I see it now that you mention it, because I never noticed it before. But this kid that I saw that was my height, actually a little bit shorter than me, and I would see him walking through the car dealership, and I'm like, is that how I look walking around places? Like, it's crazy. Like, you just notice when you see people that are, super tall or super big like that. Now add on all the football equipment. I think it's important. So I want you to speak to what Buck had to say as far as just the overall size of the team compared to years past.
Well, it's the Steve Spurrier, the college coach coming to the NFL. Matt Rule and Scott Fitterer, they just drafted a bunch of guys for the most part that didn't belong in the league. They drafted guys from Baylor and from Temple and these different Matt Rule stops. And when Dave and Dan took over, they jettisoned all of those guys, minus, Brady Christensen and a couple other different dudes. Like, well, J.C. Horn was already J.C. Horn, though. But, for the most part, man, they drafted a bunch of guys that didn't belong in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I know when he came, it was basically Derek Brown. We didn't have Robert Hunt or Damian Lewis yet. Icky was there. But when you go to history of the last probably 3-4 years, the time Roseman has been in Philadelphia, it's, that old underground acronym for NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And dude, Jordan Davis, 6'5", 350.
Yeah.
Carter, 6'3", 327. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line, when you look at it, last year, the year before, Lane, the year before, when you had Mekhi Becton and Lane Johnson, Becton has never been the best technique guy, but when you have guards at 6'7", 340, you can just move.
Yeah.
The tush push is infuriating because you really can't stop it.
Right.
When we used to do the 4th and 1 with Cam, we knew it was going to be a first down.
Right.
But now they literally pick up their quarterback by his legs and push him into the end zone with a line across the board that averages 320.
Yeah.
It was even more than, like I said, a couple of years ago. So the thing about, especially in the trenches with size, is it's imperative. When you look at that, Mike Rucker, 6'5", 265. Brinson Buckner, 6'2", 315. Chris Jenkins, 6'4", 340, 350. And that was on paper. I'd probably say that brother played around 365. I mean, he was huge. And then you have Peppers, 6'7", 295, running a 4.5.
Mm-hmm. Insane.
It's insane. And it
Yeah.
changes the way that offenses have to play you. It changes the way that coordinators have to make calls. I mean, when it's 3rd and 2 and you know you can't run the ball, the defense has the advantage.
Yep.
And when you don't have the kind of guys that can move people around, you can't compete in the NFL. And at that point, we couldn't compete.
Speaking of moving people around, I'm going to go to the next person that he mentioned because I saw a clip of Lee Hunter just mauling Chandler Zavala. Like, tossed him right out of the way, got to the backfield, all that. And it was a running play, right? And we heard what Robert Hunt said about, Lee Hunter and, what he thought about him as far as a run defender, as a rookie, all that kind of stuff. But this is Buck on his take of Lee Hunter.
Another guy, Buck, I know you're watching closely as a young guy, Lee Hunter. What's your observations from him and the immediate impact you think he can have?
First of all, 99, Jackson Kidd is huge.
He is, man.
He's not from this planet. Those people like that ain't born.
Come on, Cam Jackson.
You have to put them together. I just hope he can play up to his size. But I was impressed by Lee Hunter. I saw him actually running with the ones, and he held his own. He's a throwback player, no tape on the wrist, not a whole bunch of razzle dazzle to the way he dressed. He just goes out there and he plays. He plays with energy. One thing I did notice, he plays with good leverage to be a young player. Most young defensive linemen struggle with leverage coming out of college because most defensive linemen that get drafted are just so much better than the offensive linemen they face, so they get bad habits of not having good leverage and not good technique. But this guy is ahead of the curve. And, he has a great, Wash, the D-line coach, is a great coach, a great technician. And, and I watched him actually in drills, and I watched him whenever Derek Brown corrected him on something, it wasn't no pushback. It was like, all right. And he asked for direction, like, all right, what do you mean by that? How I need to do it? And, he was looking for that clarification, which is
That's awesome.
Which is a great trait to have as a young guy willing to learn from your veteran leader.
That stuck out to me more than anything else because that's scalable. That translates, right? That's the thing we know about Lee is that he is just a football player, right? But to also have all these skills and all that kind of stuff and come in and be open to critique, to be open to coaching and to be taught, sky's the limit for this kid. It is absolute sky limit. That's why, look, Jeremy Fowler had written an article about the 5 teams that would make the most sense for Vita Vea to get, traded by, right? And don't get me wrong, the idea of Derek Brown, Vita Vea, Jalen Phillips, it's an enticing proposition. That said, though, I fully believe in Lee Hunter. Is Lee Hunter Vita Vea? No. But Lee Hunter's going to be Lee Hunter. And Lee Hunter's going to make a name for himself in this league, right? So I'm not putting anything in his way. Because if you get Vita, now you got – personally, I think if you got Vea, you would have to probably – Bobby would be part of the trade package and possibly even somebody else or, hopefully it would just be picks. But you still got to pay him, right? I would rather bet on the young guy with the traits and the upside that can give you a lot of what you get from Vita from a run perspective and possibly even, eventually pass rush perspective, and then have that guy, that I don't have to pay for a few years, then pay Vita an extension that he's looking for. So that's why I never even, brought it up, never even made a video about it. It's not something that I would want personally. But this makes me very excited about this defensive line moving forward because the main thing, man, is if you can't, our pressure is more than likely coming off of the edge, right? That's where you're going to get the bulk of your pressures from, which Jalen Phillips is going to bring, a 20% at minimum height to that. I think it's going to help Princely Umamielen out tremendously, who I think is going to have a big year as well in the role that he's going to be sprung into. But if, Lee Hunter as a rookie offers you nothing else than to make your run defense more robust. That's a huge win for me. I can live with that. I can live with it not necessarily turning into quarterback pressure, but you ain't running nowhere on us. So one of them's got to work. And I think that that's going to be a huge feather in his cap for this season, an immediate impact.
Well, I mean, I don't think that the GM or coach, Todd Bowles, I don't think they want to get tar and feathered. So trading Vita Vea within the division
would be insane.
Really dismissive and easily dismissive for me. But yeah, this kid has the makings of being the comp I used was Anthony McFarland.
Booger McFarland, yeah.
Booger McFarland is the nickname everybody knows him by. And I mean, because I won't say sap, but they have that same build. Extremely quick, extremely stout at the point of attack. And, the leverage part of it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And you do. Even when they're showing them going through the individual drills, like this kid is, I would say, wise beyond his years. Well, that's an easier thing to say, but this kid just displays the characteristics of a veteran already.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, being extremely coachable, unassuming, good teammate, and for the most part, defensive linemen, I mean, they're there to free up linebackers. They're there to free up edge rushers, and they're there to stop the run. They're there to pile it up. And the biggest part of that is being a guy, when you have a guy who is about getting to the quarterback and he won't play his run disciplines and he won't play his gap assignments, that's how you get gashed. And by seeing them be the number one defense, like you said last week, Jay Rodriguez and
David Bailey.
What's the kid that went to the Jets?
Yeah, David Bailey.
Those guys ate off the fact that Lee Hunter just completely consumed blockers. He completely consumed the mind of offensive coordinators. And so for him to come in and just be a rookie, another guy, he's going to be able to wreak havoc.
Yeah.
Because they've got to worry about Derek Brown. They've got to worry about Jalen Phillips. They've got to worry about Devin Lloyd.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, I hope they got to worry about Princely Amamialin. They got to worry about Pat Jones. They got to worry about Kim Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have, and you talk about giving the flowers. To this point, I am ecstatic just the way that from starting completely bare. I mean, and that's evidenced by what Brenson Buckner was saying in the interview. The cupboard was bare when Dan took over and when Dave took over. And they've built subsequent depth at every major position except tight end and strong safety.
Agreed. My man
Everybody else, iron sharpen iron.
Saw a few people in the chat. I'm going to acknowledge Rock Report, Pop, and Shaky 8 AN. But Pop said something. He asked a question. He said, where do you, on the D-line, do you want to see him play? Talking about Lee Hunter.
Well, I feel like every down, every day, every down. I feel like in the base package, he'll be beside Derek Brown. I feel like on some goal line stuff, short side of the field, we may see him kicked out to the 5 technique, playing some end, especially with, the loss of Scorton. Mm-hmm. But he's going to have his hand in the dirt, man. He's going to have to occupy blockers. And he's going to have to, take away that step up. That's the biggest part. What I like about Jalen Phillips' pressure is it's not that, and, they can take it as a shot, whatever. The big thing about Brian Burns was he would take these huge arcs in his way, that he would try to get to the quarterback, and that would leave these huge running lanes. That would leave these huge lanes to step up and to dissect down the field. Jay, he come right at you.
Yeah.
He pushes the tackle back in your lap. He beats him with hand movement, and he works his way down the line. So with that kind of pressure, the quarterback's going to have nowhere to go. He's
That's a
not going to
really
be
good
able
point.
to.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? And you see those different kind of ends, those different kind of outside linebackers. And that's what made me excited about his particular type of pressure, which is why it was so successful, or more successful in Philadelphia than it was at
In
the start of the
Miami.
year in Miami last
Yeah.
year,
Agreed.
because there was no pocket to step up into because you had Jordan Davis and you had Carter.
Right.
And so here, he's going to have Derek Brown. He's going to have Lee Hunter. He's going to have Bobby Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Cam Jackson. And, fingers crossed, eventually Turk Wharton.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a bevy of riches here, man. It's got to be put all together, but I think the biggest and I'm kind of segue kinging this right now. To put all of that together, we're going to go to the last clip of Brynston Buckner and his thoughts about Devin Lloyd and just how impactful it can be for Devin in this defense, matching what you just said about the defensive line, right? So here's Buck on Devin Lloyd.
Buck, you mentioned Devin Lloyd in your initial breakdown. What do you think of his addition, and schematically, what's he going to add to this defense that it was missing in previous years?
Man, Devin Lloyd is a super athletic guy. I was in Jacksonville when we drafted him out of Utah.
Oh, yeah.
And he really was a positionless player because he played so many positions at Utah. They used him all over the field, and we brought him in to be an inside linebacker. And what we had to do was we had to hone all that ability in, like cut away all the other stuff, just what you need. Now you add that athleticism and that size and playmaking ability in the middle of your defense, you only get stronger. And what a lot of people don't understand, he allows you some versatility, because I actually saw him getting a chance to line up on the line of scrimmage almost as an outside linebacker and actually pressure the quarterback. And that's a trait that Devin Lloyd has. He worked on it, in Jacksonville a lot. He takes pride in being able to be a good blitzer and take advantage of those matchups. And I think that's going to be a big plus, because the one thing that if I could say was a negative for Carolina's defense last year, was the play up the middle once you got past the defensive line. Those guys did as good as they could do, but Devin Lloyd is an upgrade, and he's a bigger presence. He's not only big, he's fast, he's rangy, he's long, and he has a high football character. We used to have to kick him out the building in Jacksonville because he literally wanted to be there all the time, and we always had to protect him from himself. Like, look, don't pressure yourself to be great. Just be good every day and let the greatness come. But he wants to be great. He's a great kid. He loves his teammates. But I think that's a big plus. And I think making him the green dot guy is going to sort of challenge him to become even better.
Shout out to Mac and Bone. Shout out to Brynston Buckner for a absolute heater of an interview. This was just great information. My takeaway from all of this was just physicality. If I could sum it up in one word, physicality, man. The take on Devin Lloyd was fascinating because he mentioned how, and I said this earlier in the show, and I'm going to talk to myself and other people as well. Regardless of what you've seen on the field and the biases you may have based on what you've actually seen from a productivity perspective, here is the reality. And Pop, yes, Lloyd and Rodriguez would have been a match made in heaven. But here's reality sitting in for me. Had we seen the version of Devin Lloyd that first showed up in Jacksonville, like, listen, I don't know about you guys, but I follow a few content creators from the Jacksonville area, right? And many content creators and many of their fans were sad about Devin Lloyd leaving, but it wasn't like a, burn down the stadium or anything because you lost who you lost. There wasn't that feeling at all, right? Why? Because like we've seen with other players, on our current roster, they saw half of a good year and one amazing year from Devin Lloyd, and they were like, well, we can replace that. Not so fast. I think Jacksonville will suffer at the linebacker spot this year as a result of trying to replace a guy that had 7 interceptions. I don't care if it took that many years to get it done. Now, on our end, we're looking at it like, oh, my gosh, this guy's going to be incredible, because all we're going off of is what we saw last year and what was put in front of you that we saw. Case in point, it is very important to give guys time to develop. And it's also important to not hold against them things that you may see that, hey, you can very much point out as issues, sometimes major issues, but then it just clicks for some guys, man. And if you're a guy that is a workhorse, a guy that you got to kick out of the building, all those great things that Buck said about Devin Lloyd in Jacksonville, it makes sense that he would come here and want to link with Luke Kuechly. Let me learn from you. Teach me how you watch film, all this kind of stuff, because now I'm able to put together the knowledge that I have and be able to see your concepts, excuse me, how you would watch film and pick up on things, because I'm not having to just learn basics. Now it's muscle memory. So now I can just stack. I can what would you call it? I can just stack knowledge, right? Skill stack, right? So this is exciting, but for as much as he talked about Devin Lloyd, it was also a sobering moment for me to like kind of push back a little bit and be like, well, hold on. Maybe I should have that same grace for one Xavier Legette.
Xavier Legette.
Yeah. Yeah. My takeaway really was that that maybe we don't know what this season holds, man. I mean, maybe he kicks it into another gear. I'm being optimistic. But yeah, I mean, this is just the nature of the business. And it all happens to come together at the same time. And then it just continues. Now you got a framework to go by. And it just continues. But I thought that the Devin Lloyd thing was probably the best. I saved that one for last because to me, that was the best nugget that he gave, talking about what Devin was to what he became. A guy that really – Devin was what many people saw in – and I find this fascinating that we have this guy on our roster, Isaiah Simmons, right? Isaiah Simmons was a positionless player at Clemson. Watch that one very close, right? And I remember when we didn't draft him and people were frustrated, right? And then in the second round, we took Jeremy Chin. And many people thought like, well, Jeremy Chin is a version of that. And, early on, kind of looked like he might be, right? But Isaiah was just – it was kind of weird because like a little bit too big to be safety, getting exposed, not quite a linebacker. So found his place as a special team guy. And I still think – because Isaiah Simmons is a talented player. I still think that there may be a role for him somewhere. I'd like to see him as a potential off-ball linebacker having opportunities there to see what happens. Maybe we see that in the preseason. Who knows? But regardless, those positionless guys, man, when you're in college, it's all with the coaching staff. A lot of times, you're just trying to win games. So if you got a guy that's talented, Harold Perkins, you know what I'm saying? Or some of these guys out here, that are just talented guys, but may not have a full grasp on the concepts of playing, Mike linebacker or whatever that is. I just need him on the field. Because if he's out there, he's gonna make a play. Even if it's drawn up in the dirt, even if he just mistakes himself into a play, it's gonna be better than the alternative guy that's probably gonna be a banker or insurance salesman next year. Right? So yeah, I'm dead serious. It's fascinating, and I'm excited to see what he becomes as the green dot backer, because this will be the first time. This is why when people were having the kind of the apprehension about it, because they're like, man, he wasn't this guy, so it's going to be new. All signs point to this is not going to be a problem for him this year at all.
Well, I mean, the thing about a guy like Lloyd is he may have not had a position when he was at Utah, but he fits very nicely into the linebacker mold. Isaiah Simmons was billed as the new prototype at outside linebacker. And he was just, I think he went into a 4-3, and it was just another bad organization. At that time, Arizona, they just weren't trying to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a guy out there that's got to go out there and do what linebackers do on a team and an organization that's not trying to compete, the cards are stacked against you. I think this is the first time Isaiah Simmons can, like, quote unquote, let his hair down and actually look towards the coaching staff, look towards the organization, and you see these guys like Luke Kuechly every day. They don't have anybody in Arizona
Right.
that you can look to and be like, oh man, that's Luke Kuechly. Oh man, that's Dan Morgan. And then Dan Orlovsky was saying in an interview how impressed he was with Ejiro Evero. You don't have a guy that can really use you. And so now you're in a place where you have a guy who can make use of your skills. You have a special teams coach who super values you. And you have a place, and you've also been humbled to where you're like, man, I got to get in where I can fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think all of those have come together to form this perfect storm of him being a great stalwart and special teams guy for us. But with Lloyd, I mean, like I said, 6'3", 240. And the big part of it is, same thing we were talking about earlier with Bryce, it takes a natural maturation to become what you are in the NFL. You only have a few guys that come in, and as soon as you turn, the lights on, they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't discount that first year with, Urban Meyer and just the way that was such a black eye on that organization and the NFL.
Yeah.
And then as soon as things started stabilizing a bit, like I said, the last 2 years, he's played pretty lights out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting the finished version, which is the big fear. A lot of times in the NBA, guys, they're scared when they get rid of someone. And I've heard you allude to it before about, man, if they get rid of this guy, they better be right. You don't want to be the team that puts in those developmental years and then lets a guy walk or trades a guy, and then he becomes ultimately what any team would need to be successful.
Right.
So I believe at this point, you can't throw over the guy. You can't run at him. I mean, we saw last year when we played Jacksonville, he was everywhere. Sideline to sideline.
Yes. Everywhere.
And so
that's what I'm saying, bro. Could you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Look, Dave Canales is coaching this team. Dave Canales is a Pete Carroll disciple. Dave Canales is one of those guys that if you show in camp that your ability is undeniable, I just want you to picture a world with 6'3" Devin Lloyd and 6'4" Jackson Kawach. If I'm not saying that he's that already, Brad. I don't want to, because I know I can get into the hype stuff off of just seeing a couple of plays. But just imagine if this guy comes out in the Hall of Fame game and he's everywhere. They're not going to overlook that. And that's oh my God, that'd be a game changer. Carry on.
I mean, it's the reason that Dave Canales always mentions David Moore. If you have a guy that continues to contribute, no matter what we say as fans, I know I've said, maybe he's a guy you can, sneak on the practice squad for your veteran designation. When you see every day that he's the guy that's consistently making plays while other guys have up and down days, up and down weeks, but every day you can go to the David Moore well and you can get something from him. That to me is like the case study for like a guy that Canales won't get rid of, a guy he won't move on from, and a guy that he's going to try to get opportunities for.
Yeah.
And so the fact that a guy had 7 interceptions and then people are trying to act like, oh man, I mean, it's okay that we lost him. I think they call it copium. You know what I mean? These fans, they're just trying to act like it's not a big deal because they're hurting, Linda. they know Devin Lloyd is a Pro Bowl linebacker.
Right.
And now he's come into a team where he's going to succeed. He's the kind of guy that you got to kick out of the gym. You got to kick out of the building. Man, you pair that with the coaching that we have here, the enthusiasm for coaching, and the enthusiasm, what we'll call it, optimist bully.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're on a team where a guy's if anybody gonna blow smoke, it's gonna be Dave Canales.
It's gonna be Dave Canales.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm excited too, because I don't, we've been locked out for, this will be the second year. You never know how this is going to help a Trevin Wallace. You never know how this is going to help a Garden Cherilus. Like, these guys may look at him, see how he works, and step their game up.
Yeah.
And our linebacking core may completely transform over the course of an offseason because of a guy like Devin.
All right, we are back. We were frozen completely. I'm back just for the moment. Brad may tap back in just a second. Type a 1 in the chat if you can see me now. I know I was frozen for a minute. It looks like I am actually streaming off of my phone internet at this point. We were getting ready to finish up anyway, but looks like Spectrum has had an outage here for some reason. This has been happening a lot lately. We got a lot of construction going on in our area, so they're messing with all kind of fiber stuff and blah, 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 this, that, and the third. But yes, we're back. Okay, appreciate y'all, man. Yeah, anyway, Brad will likely tap back in just a second. We got to hear the Brenton Buckner interview as we were just going over and mentioned, so I appreciate you guys still being here. Once Brad taps back in, I do want to bring up something, so I'm going to reach out to him to see if he is available to come back in. Give me 1 second, and I'm pretty sure he probably hears that I am live again. So we're getting to call Brad live on the phone. Yo.
Let's go off the A-cam. What happened?
Yeah, tap back in, man. We live again. So had an internet outage, but I'm streaming from the phone data. But I want you to finish up. They said it's still a little shaky, but, we back. Hold on. They're saying it's back out. Nah, on my end, I'm seeing that we're here. So it might just be a little, yeah, okay. They said we're good. So, yeah, tap back in. We want to go over the Asher situation, and then we're going to finish up.
All right, give me just a second.
Bet. So Brad will be back in just a second. I appreciate y'all for standing by. Man, I'm telling you, these technical difficulties are crazy, man. I live in an area where there are Panther head, still a little shake. Oh, y'all crazy, man. There's a ton of new development going on, and we have had internet outages consistently. So this has been an ongoing issue. And it just so happens that it doesn't happen as often whenever I'm streaming, but man, we could be watching a movie in here and then all of a sudden it's gone. Right. So, but my man Brad is back in the building. Bradford, can you hear us? It looks like he is in the green room. So let's get Brad, back in here. Brad, you there? I think you got yourself muted, my friend. Let's see. I don't have you muted, Brad. I don't know if you can hear me or hear yourself, but you are not muted, so you're good to go. You still there with us?
You hear me?
Oh, yeah, I hear you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, I wanted to bring up something that, because you and I talked about this, and I wanted to give you the floor to talk about a really special thing that the Panthers did this past weekend at FanFest. And this was for a young man named Asher that they done a really cool, he became like an honorary member of the Carolina Panthers. And I thought this was like just the best gesture for him to sign a one-day contract and them to recognize him and allow him to like run a touchdown. And man, they turned the lights on. It was just a beautiful thing. But Brad, I'm gonna let you take this one away, man, because you had some really good info last night when you were telling me about this, and so the floor is yours, brother.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to basically tap into just kind of like the power of sport. I know I've dealt with people in the past who, especially like football players, they look at them as, just big, uh, giant, people testosterone and fueled morons or whatever. But you look at just some of the ways that these people can touch the lives of other people. And with Asher Harvey, he was a kid. He was diagnosed with an issue with his heart, and he had to have a surgery at 6 months, and he had to have another surgery. And his parents, really were just completely overwhelmed. And so when you talk about the power of sports, it always goes back to like what these guys instill and put in their community, especially with Xavier Leggett. And the thing with him going, having Bryce go down to Mullins and just seeing what these guys do for the community. And on a much grander scale, seeing just what Greg Olson has done for the community in Charlotte. Greg Olson's son, he had heart issues. And so they partnered with, Levine Children's Hospital. And so with Asher's problems, they've been able to have a one-on-one. They've had special unlimited access to Levine Children's Hospital. And, the kid is going to continue to have surgeries. He only has like one side of his heart that works. And so he's going to continue to have these surgeries as he gets older, so he can normalize his life and the way he operates. And so his family, were invited because he said his wish was to meet Bryce Young, and so his family was brought in. They signed a contract with him. They gave him a jersey. They outfitted him with pads. He actually got to go into the quarterback room and to draw up plays. I know they had drove a couple plays for him, and then he drew up another play with the help of Kenny Pickett, which ended up being the handoff play that he scored on at the end of the game, or at the end of practice. And it was just really cool just to see the power of sport and to see this kid and to see, like you said, 60% full stadium, everybody support this kid in something a lot of people don't have to deal with. And just to support him in what him and his family is going through as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And it just, like I said, just goes to the power of sport. And I'll finish with a quote from Nelson Mandela that says, sports, they have the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire, the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sports can create hope where there was once only despair. It is more powerful than governments in breaking down racial barriers. It laughs in the face of all types of discrimination. Sports is the games of lovers. And I just really wanted to highlight that because, you see this all the time in team spring games, in, college, NFL, but it just goes to show that it's just not something that we waste our time on. Mm-hmm. It's just not something that, a form of entertainment that we use to get away from the world. It's something that actually impacts people and impacts families and impacts communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said. I appreciate that, Brad. It's the reason why there was I can't remember this guy's name. It's like Myron something, motivational speaker. I'm not really into like hustle culture stuff. I used to be. And I'm not into it because I think most of it is disingenuous. And this Myron guy has a clip that went viral at one point. He was like, why are you like wearing another man's jersey and you're sitting around watching, other men and, these guys are rich and you're doing all this. I'm like, man, shut up, bro. Like, because the reality is that, the funny thing is that a lot of these people say these things without really understanding, especially when they come in the name of Christianity, right? About understanding what the Bible actually says about being rich or attempting to be rich, right? There's nothing wrong with being rich, nothing at all. But the scripture tells us that those who aspire to be rich fall into a snare, right? So it's essentially what it's saying is like, man, oftentimes the kind of stuff, the nefarious things that you have to do to people or organizations, businesses, stuff like that, lead you down a path that is less than desirable for you and the parties involved. But again, if you bring something to the market that can be replicated and scalable, especially if it's enriching people's lives, whatever that looks like, there is nothing wrong with being rich. You can get rich off of your day job if you invest your money, right? It may take you longer, but so there's nothing wrong there. But it's that constant pursuit. And so when you hear people like this Myron guy say, you watching other people that are rich and you look crazy because you watching other men run around in jerseys and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, man, you don't understand how philanthropic. These guys probably give away more than you hustle to earn yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't trying to hear all that. Especially like you and I were talking about last night. Baseball may be a very philanthropic league. The NHL may be a very philanthropic league, but it don't get promoted the same way as and I would argue it's because it's not as robust as it is in the NBA and the NFL. I've never seen NHL cares. You know what I'm saying? Like when you see the NBA cares promo and stuff like that, I've never seen that with the NHL or baseball. It probably does exist and I just hadn't seen it. But like I said, it's not something that you see. And sometimes these guys go above and beyond even what they're asked to do, right? And they bring their own suggestions to the table to aid in that as well. So that's all I'm saying. So, man, we are absolutely frozen, Brad. Like it's a mess. So, singing, it's the reason that we are here. I haven't been alive forever. Glad I could catch this one live. So it looks like we are frozen up, man. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream because it's not gonna get any better. It's only gonna get worse. Like I said, they're doing fiber lines around here and stuff like that, man. Hopefully this internet issue is not gonna be a consistent theme, because if it is, somebody gonna get dealt with during the season, especially. But Brad,
maybe once they finish it up, it may mean it's super crisp after that.
Yeah, so this might be a temporary thing, man. So we look forward to that. I hope that it is just a temporary thing. But Brad, I got this. It's kind of crazy, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Derek Washington on Instagram. But he's a entertainer, a singer, and we're gonna end our show from this point forward with Derek Washington. But before we go, you got any last words, man?
Keep pounding.
Hey, that's all it takes, man. One simple word. Keep pounding. Derek Washington, take us out of here, man. And I know we will see y'all next week. So I wave in the light in the store. Yeah. And if you're racist, go away. If you're not a racist, come here now. I like to go outside and